So good afternoon. So glad you guys came. This is a good showing. Good showing for the arts. The arts at University of Chicago are growing. And we've got a really exciting panel today, very diverse, which is how it always is around here. They tell us we're only allowed to have 5, and we always have at least 7. And proud to say everybody showed up today, which is just awesome. My name is Lloyd King. I'm the director of the UChicago Careers in the Arts program. And that just means I have an office in the basement of Logan, and you can make an appointment to come talk to me about careers in the arts. The good news is that really you can have a career in the arts. The bad news, of course, is that the odds of you getting rich are slim, but hey, it's not all about the money, as Mr. Axelrod said. It's all about doing something, changing the world, or at least making them laugh, or making some good music for them, or writing them a good book, or something like that. So I encourage anyone who wants to have a career in the arts to go for it, because you can do that. But how do you do it becomes the rub, the difficult question. And you want to find out how.
Maybe just
Is
close.
she like louder than me? Should I yell louder?
Maybe
Yeah,
slide the door.
she's talking smack about you, actually.
Yeah. Just bang. I should have done it. All right, so yeah,
This is a bit.
I think it's just the way it's going to be. So the deal is, you can do it. It's just a question of how, and that's your job today, is to stay engaged enough to come up with some questions that may tell you, oh yeah, how could I do a career, or how one might go about getting a career in the arts, doing it. If you're going to do doctor or lawyer, there are different ways to do it, of course, but there are often more conventional tracks that they say, okay, you go and you do your internship here if you're going to do, or you're interning here if you're a doctor, or something like that. But people in the arts are like entrepreneurs. They tend to find their own way, or back into it, or things fall on them, or various different stories that you hear about. So while you're listening to the introductions, which are the way this whole thing's going to work, is going to be very short introductions. We're all going to just say, the panel's going to say who they are in just a few minutes, and they're just going to basically give you just the briefest outline of their career trajectory. They were once undergraduates at University of Chicago, or connected with the University of Chicago in some way, and then they got from there to wherever they are now. They might still be connected to the University of Chicago, but they obviously have built a career in the arts. They'll tell you a little bit about how they got there, but this is all going to go very quickly because this panel is mostly about Q&A. So while they're talking, start formulating questions. If you can't formulate any, I think they even wrote some questions for you at the beginning of this folder book thing that we give you, that thing. But I know you're all very creative and come up with your own questions. Really just listen, and if anything makes you curious, or you don't understand, or you just think, there's no such thing as a stupid question here. It's all about just bringing out the information, as much information as we can get in an hour and 15 minutes out into the room. So I'll let the panel go. They'll introduce it. I'll do minimal moderating because I find this is sort of self-moderating. They've got mics in front of them. They can see who's raising their hands. I can start calling on people, but if you see somebody and beat me to the punch, hey, that's fine with me. I'm not going to be insulted. All right, so we're just going to go this way.
So my name's Willie, and I work as an artist. I was graduate in '09 with a degree in physics and economics, and while I was in school, I was actually part of the circus, and I wanted to be a juggler and then learn to twist balloons on the side. And when I graduated, I actually worked as a balloon twister at birthday parties and a street performer. Eventually I got a job at Leo Burnett, which is I think it's the 3rd largest agency in the world. They invented the Marlboro Man back in the day. I didn't have such a great experience there, but oddly enough, I made the first feminine hygiene ad to ever feature blood. But anyway, I left that back in 2010 and have been kind of focusing on my own work since then, a mix of installations, working on a video game at the moment, and most recently I did Beck's Beer had a series of limited edition art labels. That MIA was one of the artists who's representing London, and Jeff McFetrich, who did I think the titles for the movie Where the Wild Things Are. He was the graphic designer who did that. And then that OK Go music video with the toast, he was the animator. So he was the guy from LA, and I was the guy from Chicago. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
Do I tap this?
Oh, it's on. Okay, great. Okay, my name is Sarah Jahedi. I also graduated in '09. I was a biology major, but I kind of, like in hindsight now, I always kind of wanted to be a filmmaker since probably I was like when I was age 6. So when I started college, I, took production classes, and I worked with a group of very talented people on a web series. They were like improv people or fire escape people, and we did a web series for about 2 years, Drexel and Drexel and Pushing 23, and we all like wrote it and acted in it, and just created it, and like 12 people watched it on campus. We like bombarded the library with posters. And then once I graduated, I didn't really want to go to medical school, but I was so used to doing things I didn't want to do, so I just kind of didn't tell my parents. Took my MCAT money, I was in Chicago, so I took some improv classes, which I didn't like. I actually didn't really, I tried out sketch a little bit, but I started doing stand-up. Because that's kind of, I don't know, I tended to like that. That was like a better expression of what I wanted to do. And it worked out pretty well. This is kind of a funny story. And I was telling someone, it just kind of came out, but I had gotten arrested my senior year. And I had that as an excuse because I couldn't apply to medical school yet until my record was expunged. So like my mom wasn't like complaining at me yet. I just was like slowly not applying to medical school. And it was like, well, I can't apply yet. I gotta wait a few years. And so I just kind of started doing stand-up and, the same group of people that, we did the web series after we graduated were like, that was so much fun. That was kind of like what I loved about, college. So we did a web series. We submitted it to a festival. The web series ended up getting picked up by HBO, and it's a web series on HBO Go, and it's called Sing Along. And now I am, shifting gears a little bit. I'm doing more of like a personal project, feature length, and a story that's closer to me, and I'm just trying to like do more of like a filmmaking and telling my story kind of thing right now.
My name is Peter O'Leary. I graduated in 1990. I studied English. I spent 3 years in the sort of wage slavery, early 20s, completely generic dissatisfaction, which then led me to do what anyone in that situation should do, which was enroll at the divinity school, where I was institutionalized for an additional 6 years. Which is all to say, I'm here to represent the total non-career of poetry, which is something that I think of in terms of Robert Duncan, the great American poet Robert Duncan's characterization. He said, I caught the contagion and came down with poetry, which is effectively the case. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to find a cure for which there is none, except perhaps to find yourself teaching courses for the Committee on Creative Writing and infecting other people with your particular virus. So that's what I do. Other things too. I shortly after I graduated, I began to edit a small magazine, which was started by my younger brother. The archives for which are held in the special collections at the Regenstein. So you can have that to look forward to if poetry is your thing, that one day for a pittance, the Regenstein will buy your so-called archives. And then I've with a friend that I made, in fact, we lived together freshman year in Breckenridge, John Tipton, who graduated 2 years after me, he had a little hiatus in the middle of that stretch. We recently started a small press focusing on innovative poetry and innovative translations of classic literature. It's called Verge Books. So there's other things I do as well.
My name is Claire Mazer. I graduated, is this on? Can you hear me?
It is.
Okay, can't tell. I graduated from the college in 2006. As an undergraduate, I was really active in Festival of the Arts. That was sort of my passion project. And when it came time to decide what I had to do after school, I just wanted to figure out how to keep doing Festival of the Arts for the rest of my life. I was really excited about basically making it possible for artists to do their work and find a place to display it, and also giving access to audiences, so making it easier for audiences to consume art. So the way I figured out that I could do that was to go to graduate school for arts administration. And over the course of that and doing a lot of internships and starting to work in the field, I got really frustrated with the structures that existed to support artists really in this country. I thought that the non-for-profit system was pretty broken and not working, especially around 2008, and got really inspired by what was happening on the internet to support artists, and also to give them access to marketing and to distribution, and also to give audiences opportunities to consume the arts and other creative professionals. And so in 2010, with a friend of mine from college who had graduated in 2005, I started a company. It's called Of a Kind, and we sell the pieces and tell the stories of emerging fashion designers. And I love it. I love giving young fashion designers an opportunity to sell their work and gain access to new audiences. And I like making money, and I like figuring out how to give fashion designers more money. And I think that's a really important part of figuring out how to be a creative professional, is figuring out how to get paid for it. So.
My name is Sean Daly. I graduated in 2002 with a degree in cinema and media studies and music. And I graduated with the ability to talk intelligently about film and not much else. So I worked in Chicago for 2 years at the Newberry Library, full-time, and then part-time I bartended in the alien ship that they landed in Soldier Field. And I also worked on a film festival, which was really, really interesting. It was an ongoing film festival where we had screenings once a month of maybe one feature or 5 or 6 shorts. And it definitely gave me an opportunity to see the kind of material that was being produced at that level. And it really, really depressed me to see how many tens of thousands of dollars were going into these films that most of them were sad. There were, of course, diamonds in there, but most of them were very sad. So I kind of wanted to get out of that, and I'd worked a lot on set, and I knew that I think it was the first time I did a 7 days in a row of a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shoot and worked during the day. I decided I didn't want to work on set. So I knew I had to go to either New York or LA, and I was very, very lucky. I was from New York, and I had a place to stay in New York. I could crash at my father's log cabin in New Jersey and commute in every day with him. So I moved there, and I started looking for an internship or a job. And I discovered, I had 2 offers. I had an offer for an internship, $20 a day, at an amazing company that did something I did not know existed, which is represent specifically the dramatic rights, so the film and television rights to books, articles, and life rights. So, and then I had another job offer, which was a salaried position, it was $26,000 a year, to write the copy for the back of DVDs. And thankfully, I followed the thing that meant I would sleep at my father's place for another 6 months, and I started working at Hotchkiss & Associates, which is this agency that does dramatic rights. And it's been 8 years there of clawing my way up from intern to assistant to contracts administrator to junior agent to full agent. And now I represent on my own a great deal of clients for their dramatic rights. A book of mine, Horns, just filmed in Vancouver with Daniel Radcliffe from the Joe Hill novel. we also worked on American Gangster and Secretariat and Hotel for Dogs and The Kite Runner. So a very wide range of material. I wish they could all be American Gangsters, but they're not. And yeah, that's what I do.
All right, I'm Megan Freestead. I'm class of 2011. I studied history and English at the college, but I was also very involved in the Major Activities Board and the college programming office, focusing mainly on music and events and artist relations. I also interned a lot. I interned for Andrew Bird's management company. I interned at the venue Lincoln Hall and the venue Shubas. And I interned at Pitchfork Media my senior year, which I went on to get a job there, which is what I do now. I'm the office manager of Pitchfork Media. I also started in my second year at the college with a friend of mine from back home. I'm from Minneapolis. Started a local record label that we run together. We have 7 bands, all local, some touring, and I play in a band on the label as well. I play keyboards and sing, and my business partner writes the music. And we just finished recording our second record in Minneapolis, and it's really exciting and amazing. And I love being able to do the business side of things, but also the creative side at the same time, which is one of the great things about the arts and careers in the arts in general.
Great. Hi, my name is Ethan Dubin. I'm an actor primarily and do a lot of new devising work and that sort of thing. I'm currently an apprentice at the Actors Theater of Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky, which is like they do an apprenticeship for actors, which is like a sort of mini grad school thing, like a highly competitive, awesome thing where you're in shows, you make work, that sort of thing. I graduated in 2011 as well. I majored in theater and had a minor in East Asian languages and civilizations. I did a lot of interning in school. I sort of came to U of C specifically because I thought I didn't want to do theater, and about 3 weeks later knew I wanted to do theater and looked at a lot of transfer apps for a long time. But ultimately just completely fell in love with being down in Hyde Park and with what Chicago had to offer without having to go to Evanston. Stay away. And then after a while, I guess I was really dissatisfied with the sort of theatrical opportunities that were on campus, and I was ironically part of a group of people that started what is maybe the most annoying institution of UT now, which is the 24-hour Play Festival, which is maybe the sole reason that theater kids don't come to this event because they've conflicted for years now. So I never came to taking the next step, so I applaud you for being here. I really love that event. So, but yeah, so I did a lot of. I eventually became very involved with UT and TAPS at school, and then sort of hit a point where I was really tired of calling myself everything, like a writer, a director, whatever. So I kind of graduated, and one day later was like, I'm just going to be an actor. That's what I'm going to do, and started to pursue that, but still tried to do some interning. And finally, an artistic director sort of sat me down and was like, look, you're a terrific actor, fortunately, but you're also a terrible intern, so just do what you're good at. Which was great, because I sort of stood up and I was like, I'm never going to call myself an intern again. And then a few months later, or whatever it was, I was an apprentice, which is half a step forward, I suppose. But I also, so out of school, I worked for Chicago Shakespeare Theater, did a little bit of work for them. I've also done a lot of education work. I worked for a program called Cherubs at Northwestern. I was an assistant teacher for the school at Steppenwolf, which is a professional acting program that Steppenwolf runs this past summer, did some shows in Chicago, none of which really paid me, but got me some good press and that sort of thing, and that's sort of where I am now, I suppose.
Thank you, guys. We're opening the floor. If people have questions, I'm going to run around with this mic because they're recording the thing for podcast. If you don't want to be on TV, just let me know, and I won't stick this in your face. But the questions can be free-flowing, and there's nothing. Most people give frank answers, so you can just ask anything. If somebody doesn't feel like answering, they just won't answer. But and you can ask it of an individual or the panel. Does anybody have anything to start? Yes, you do. I'll start with you, and then I'll get you next.
So for people who like work in the arts, how do you find your contacts? Like, because I think it's much more hard because there's not like some association of like women business or something like that. Like, it's harder for you to go find a job, or like maybe for you to find your designers. Like, how do they come to you? How do you
Why don't you repeat that? Because I don't think anybody, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. You're born to be a moderator. Yeah, bro. Next, we'll trade places soon. Yeah. All right. This young woman was wondering how we find, how these artists find their contacts. You know, you're just starting out. You don't know anybody. How do you get to know people? Yeah. And that's for the whole panel. A few of you can answer, and when you think it's been answered, we'll move on.
I think it's an important question because I think relationships are the most important thing to developing your career. So I think internships are really important, and maintaining the relationships with people that you meet at internships. And I'm also a really big fan of cold emailing people. I did it a lot when I was starting my career, and a lot of people didn't get back to me, but those are also people who are a lot of those people are my contacts now. So I think just being a little brave.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
Actually, I would add something that maybe goes in the other direction, which is I'll say a good number of the most important contacts that I've made. I'll restate that I have no career, but in terms of friendships, they were people that I met as an undergraduate at the University of Chicago, and you know, I mean, it's worth so much more than any of the other kinds of contacts you can make. At least in my experience, you know, I don't have much professional viability as far as that goes. But you know, in terms of literature, for me, it's always about sharing the passions, and it's about you know, friendship is at the core of that. So you're undoubtedly you've already made some of those contacts, and what you want to do is reinforce them with the things that you're really interested in, and spend time with those people while you have the opportunity, because you're all going to scatter.
I'd agree with that, because my most important business relationship was one of my best friends from undergrad. She's my business partner now. So that is, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
And if people are concerned, I'm really good at coaching people on how to get out there and find contacts and meet people and email people for the first time. It doesn't have to be a heinous task. It can actually be kind of fun.
Howdy. My name's Alex. Not that it matters, but for a lot of you guys, like I know Willie down there and Sarah, it didn't seem like you guys started off on the path towards the creative arts, and I can imagine I'm not the only one out here who isn't really on that path yet either. But my big question is, how did you know, or when did you know that what you wanted to do was not doctorate school or physics, or what you wanted to do art?
Should I? Yeah. Well, I mean, so I remember hearing when I was in undergrad, someone said to me, the U of C is a great school if you want to go to grad school, and it's also a great school to realize you're not cut out for grad school. And so, because for a long time, I think as an undergrad, I kept deciding whether to apply to a physics PhD program. And my fourth year, this was the moment for me, was my roommate, this guy Lucas. He was a very intelligent math major. He took honors analysis his first year. He's now getting his PhD at MIT. And I remember I passed by his room on Sunday morning, and he had just woken up. He was sitting on his bed, and he was reading a graduate level math textbook. And I asked him if he was for homework. He hadn't even gotten up yet. And he actually wasn't taking classes that quarter, so he said no, he was for fun. And I realized I never, ever just woken up on Sunday and like reached for a graduate level physics textbook and read it. But I realized I had like a Cirque du Soleil book next to my bed, and I would always look at that, and I was like, so I could like stay up all night planning the circus shows. And so I was like, maybe physics is not the thing for me. And it isn't. You know, I'm really glad I didn't do that, because you guys are like, when you're in school, it's guys like Lucas who's gonna be in grad school with you, who like lives and breathes that subject. And for me, you know, I've learned that I like live and breathe art. I can talk about it all night. I can think about it.
That's very true.
All day.
I agree.
So, but that was like a pretty formative moment when I saw like how passionate he was about math, and I was like, yeah.
You know where your passion lies, and I think a lot of your life you're in school, and it's just kind of the system you're in, so you're used to doing things you don't want to do, and so you kind of get brainwashed into like, even when you start at the U of C, you have to take classes. It's the core, you know, and yeah, I didn't read all those books. I didn't want to, but you still survive and you still go through it. What?
Tisk tisk.
I know.
Says the teacher
I know.
at the university. Read those books.
But there comes a point where part of it was grad school or a medical school wasn't a 2-year, wasn't even like. If it was shorter, maybe I would have considered it. Like if it was like, oh, just a year program. But that's, I think, a mistake a lot of people make. Is like the people that went straight into any kind of schooling, like the kids that actually like had a path and like were like, I'm graduating and I have something lined up, which everyone's envious about. But like, it changes so much, and they end up either taking a year off or maybe regretting it down the line. You don't want to get stuck in something. You don't want to be in debt. You don't want to get stuck in something where you're not sure about. And that's why, I was cautious about going to that school. Med school's like 10 years, and then, I would be stuck in it. How am I going to pay off that debt? So then you figure out, like, actually the only thing, that's it. Like, you're surrounded by brilliant people at the U of C. And the only way you're going to be good, because it's such a, like, ego, like, drainer when you first get there, because you think you're smart, and then you're like, no, you're not smart. And so the only way you're going to, but you want to stand out, and the U of C is all about, like, individuality and so that's what's cool about the U of C, but how are you going to do that? It's like by following that passion that you have. Like, learning the thing you like Wikipedia all the time. Like, that's what you like. That's what you should be going towards.
Cool. And don't be afraid of the follow-up. Like if some of what any of these people say, well, does that make sense? Or what do you do if you don't have passion? You can ask those questions. Anybody else have questions? Yeah, I'm going to start there and then work right back up here just because I want to make sure I get the back.
Hi. I wanted to know, this is for any of you guys, what is the biggest professional obstacle you guys have encountered in recent times, or like since you guys began your careers in the arts, which, as I'm sure we all have heard, is fraught with many, many difficulties, like the likes of which, from what we've heard, are the kinds of things that make you second guess and think, am I doing this right? Am I going to like end up 60 years old in like a 1-bedroom apartment and not happy with what I did? So what's been like an obstacle? None of you are 60 yet, so we're some of us are getting close. What's been like a really big professional or personal obstacle, for that matter, friends and family kind of a thing, that you guys encountered, and how did you guys move past it?
I think the hardest thing about a path like this is that there really isn't a path, and no one's telling you if what you're doing is necessarily right. So you're filled with a lot of doubt. That being said, I think doubt is like a great friend of yours as well, and it helps create the best work you can create. But I think that's really tough. Like, how do you pursue something and believe in yourself? And you have to really learn how to constantly believe in yourself, because it's not a consistent road, and no one's, I don't know, you're going to be down and people are going to kick you. And so, that being said, like, I don't think you're going to wake up one day and be 60 and be like, no, I made a mistake. Like, every day you're living it, so you can always back out of it, and that's what a lot of people do.
Specific, you said specific challenges. Let's hear from the
Yeah.
I think a lot of people.
You think of specific things that, like, oh man, that really broke my back.
At least on the business side of things, for me, there are a lot of mean people, and there are a lot of people who will blame you for things that are not your fault and will tell you that you can't do what you want to do. And so that, for me personally, at least in my job, was something that took a lot of adapting, being ready to stand up for yourself and not just take it from those people. Because it's a lot of, the entertainment industry, it's a lot of people who put themselves out there who think that they're great and really strongly believe in what they're doing and don't want to take the fall, especially on the business end. people don't want to ever take the blame for anything.
I think having the hardest thing for me was when I was first a junior agent and I had to start calling major producers and pitching books or pitching works to them, is a confidence thing, because I'm not proven. You know, I have a name. I'm backed up by the name of the company, but they don't know my name yet. And those calls were terrifying. I don't pretend to have been, you know, a shark then. I was really, really terrified, and I realized that I just really needed to fake confidence, and that's all I really needed to do was to fake it. And like I did a lot of acting, so I got to like play the agent that was awesome and like be that guy on the phone, and it worked most of the time. And eventually I got to stop faking it because I'd see that it would work out, you know, enough times that maybe I'm kind of okay at this, but I definitely needed to fake it at first because I was terrified. And the other thing is rejection, and I think we're used to some bad grades, and we're used to some like things not going well, and then we can work on it. But at least being an agent, if I get rejected, if I go out with a project to 25 different people and I get rejected 23 times, I'm doing a really good job because I have those 2 times where I didn't. And there are times where I'll get rejected 25 out of 25 times, and I just need to move on. So handling that much rejection took some learning. But the fake confidence helped that too, because I just applied that to after being rejected.
I think we're all going to hit on some similar themes here, but I think I'm facing probably the biggest professional challenge I've had right now. I'm fundraising for my business and talking to investors and trying to get them to hand over cash for working capital for my business. And I think it's something, you know, even if you don't start a business, if you are a filmmaker and you need to get financing for your film, it's a really hard thing to do, to go and have the same conversation with people over and over. And these are people who don't necessarily feel like they've done their job unless they've poked some holes in your business plan, and you really have to defend yourself and really own your vision and believe in it, because you are going to hear no 23 out of 25 times, if not more. And I think it forces you to learn a lot about yourself, but you really do have to build up a lot of strength to do that. And I think that's, you know, every artist has to do that too, if you're just an individual artist and you're presenting yourself as an actor or as a filmmaker or whatever it is.
We have a quick follow-up to that question, then I'm going to move slowly back towards the front of the room.
Speaking of obstacles, this goes for all of you, but particularly for those who transitioned away from more artistically inclined majors. How do you go about managing parental expectations, especially when you're taking a leap of faith?
And we're going to start with Ethan, because you're the baby.
My father is an academic, has been a professor, you know, practically out of the womb. And you know, even now that my parents really endorse what I do, that they're happy that I do theater and that I'm happy in it, every time I get on the phone, he's like, "So are you thinking about being a writer?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I think I'm acting still." He's like, "Oh, yeah, well, no, that's good. What about directing? Are you directing at all?" "Well, no, I'm sort of acting." The other, "Oh, okay. Okay, well, I'll ask next time." But I'm fortunate on this one. I think my parents were awfully supportive, because I worked really hard in everything else and sort of showed that there would, you know, I think I just never stopped working. I think there's a degree of ambition, and I think it's that you just need to do to sort of prove on that side of things that you'll keep getting recognition in this thing that you do. And I think what was hard for me was to just say, this is something that I'm good at, and just to kind of keep going with that. And you know, I did a few shows in college, one of which was Urinetown. You know, the writers went to U of C and they came and saw the show, in which I just played little strange children. And this sort of became a thing, and it is actually maybe my strongest thing right now, is that I can play weird, aggressive children. And it's working. You know, it's really working, which is extraordinary. And I got an interview with Time Out Chicago for a show I did playing a 10-year-old. So, you know, and it's if you can hold on to that thing that you're getting that positive feedback for, and then I think be able to sort of to say well, look, this is really weird, but it's working out. You know, I think for me that's what's allowed me to take those next steps with, you know, at least with my parents, with my support structures.
Anybody else on the panel run into real problems there?
I did. Yeah, my parents are both in the sciences. My mother works in clinical trials for big pharmaceutical companies, so she wasn't exactly excited that I wanted to do music. So there was a lot of yelling, mostly. But I think if you, like he was saying, if you show enough knowledge about your craft and if you have things that can sort of prove that it's something you're dedicated to, they'll believe you eventually. I also have a cousin who is a failed jazz drummer who lives in New York and has no money, so that helped my cause a lot. So I think she still thinks that I'm going for his career, which yeah, maybe.
I had a question for Ethan. You said you toyed with transfer applications. I was wondering why you didn't transfer. Why? What about studying at UChicago kept you there?
I think, I think something, it took me a little while to realize was that UChicago is so not, at least in the theater arts, I can't speak really to the others, but it is really not a pre-professional program in any regards, And I've learned now how valuable that actually was, that there's an eccentricity and a uniqueness that I can bring to a room that, I'll say something that I'm like, well, that was the dumbest thing ever, and someone's like, oh, brains, and I'm like, But I think at UFC it became there was that quality of ambition that I think I brought to my work there allowed me to sort of be a little innovative. And this 24-hour play festival that I started was something that I was like, well, what if this is something where people write plays overnight. So I was like, well, what if we hired a professional from the city to come in and stay up the night with the writers and try to make the plays better. And so then all of a sudden I was, going to the head of the theater department saying, if you give me some money, I'll go hire professionals. And then doing a lot of cold emailing and actually meeting these people by virtue of giving them a job, which is like an extraordinary thing for a third year to be doing, and it really bizarre, but did a lot of really good things for me. And I think it was things like that just opportunities that I created from the ground up that I really would not have been able to do in a program that was saying, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to look. I think there is a lot to be said about the eccentricity that allows for innovation with how we approach the arts at U of C. So I think that's what kept me around. And also, I fell in love with Chicago. I think every step of the way, and the theater program really, I think, was growing up around me. And I think really it's amazing now. But every step of the way, whatever I felt like I couldn't get on campus, I immediately just got on a train and tried to go find it somewhere else. And I think the moment you start to feel like you're really stagnating, that's the thing you need to do, is just go see something related to your field or talk to somebody, and it will keep you there, because Chicago is an amazing city, and anything you can't get on campus, you can get in the city, and that's something never to forget.
The only transfer you needed was a CTA transfer.
There you go.
This is specifically directed towards Willie, but anyone else could chime in. How do you promote yourself as an artist? How do you promote your work? And how do you talk about your work to other people?
How do I promote it? Well, so what happened was I did these 2 installations at the BSLC in April of my senior year. And a friend was working for the news department for the U of C, and they wrote an article about it, which U of C put on the homepage, the school's homepage, the week I was graduating. And I had no job lined up. I had my street performance license, and I was gonna keep doing birthday parties until something worked out. But someone from the MSI saw that article, and gave me a call 2 days after graduation, and they had this event called Lab Fest, which is like they go around the parks with like these interactive science exhibits, like bikes you pedal and the light bulb would turn on. And the last piece was in Millennium Park, so they commissioned me to do a piece at the end of the summer there. And it was just kind of a great setting to be, have MSI on the back of it. And it got on, I posted the image and it got on a couple of blogs. And this was actually this amazing thing, really insightful experience, because my friend sent my site to this blog in London called itsnicethat.com, and my website visit went from like 3 a day, which is like me and my sister, to 900 within, and because a lot of people read this, and there's like Gizmodo, and then a week later Elle magazine got in touch and did a 2-page spread. And so I think the really wonderful thing about the internet, and I don't need to like wax poetic about it because we're past that, but it's like it's really changed the way, like I think you had a question earlier about making contacts in the art world, And you know, I didn't have any contacts when I started. And I think it's almost less relevant nowadays, because if you just make good work and put it online, people will find it, and if they like it, they'll share it. And so I think, so that goes to, like, I know a lot of visual artists are like super protective about their digital versions of their work, like you can't download images, or there's like, a lot of photographers will put their watermark on it. And that really does you a disservice, because if people can't share your work, they're not gonna know about it. So it's been through like blogs promoting it. And I've been, so when I first started, I sent out a lot of applications. And working with arts organizations, it's like, so word of mouth through having worked with different people. Now, I was very lucky this past year, because every single project I had, and I had enough of them that I didn't have to have another job, all of them, they had approached me. And half of that was from word of mouth recommendations from earlier projects I worked on, and the second half was just like straight up, you know, like the Bex project, an agency in London just sent me an email and said, hey, Bex is doing these art labels, we want you to be involved. And they had seen my work from the blog It's Nice That, which had posted it back in 2009 when I did the Millennium Park project. So, you know, get a website, get your work out there, make sure people can pass your work around. And when you work with people, like, you just gotta be a professional to work with. You know, I've known artists who like will set up their installation and then just leave and not take it down. But those people who are organizing, they're gonna go on to other organizations, they're gonna organize other events, and they're not gonna be writing references for you if you're not easy to work with. So I don't know if that answered your question. Okay, yeah.
I would also say Willie got really lucky to get picked up by a blog that had a lot of traffic, but another way to do it is start a blog and get a lot of traffic for yourself. And I think we're in a really amazing time that you can do that, and you can do that no matter how old you are, what stage of life you are. You can start that now, and I would. Get your Twitter handle, get your blog, get your Instagram going, do that.
Yeah, the blog that featured me they were just 2 graphic design students and started a blog to keep track of cool stuff they were looking for, and just grew from there.
Nice. Here first, then behind you, and then back to you.
This question is directed at anyone who didn't major in or study the field that they're now in. How important are extracurriculars? I mean, how much involvement do you have to have? Is it, for example, I often find I don't have time to do the extracurriculars I really want to do. So how important are they?
Well, I love doing the extracurriculars, and I was telling someone, I also took like classes, production classes. They had like 2, but I would take like production classes and some creative writing classes, because I would have to take bio. There's a lot of bio requirements, a lot of labs, and then but I'd always take 4, not always, but I think almost always took 4 classes. One of them was a fun, different class, a lot of lab work, a lot of hard work, and then just one different outlet. And I tended to like put a lot of time into that class because I really liked it. And when you find a really cool project, like the web series, it was a lot of work considering how much of a workload we had with studies. Like we would film it every week. Someone would write the script, and then we would film it every week, and then have it out every week for a while. And so it was kind of like, it took up a lot of time, but that was what we loved doing, and we found a group that was so passionate. So I think you can make the time. I would make the time. I know school is really, really hard. I know it takes up a lot of time, but I don't remember anything from school, from my classes. I don't remember. No, I'm just kidding. Just if you find a cool project, invest in it.
Great. And I'm sorry. There was.
That's good.
No, that is good. And I know what it was. Oh, yeah. Like, look, if you're going to go work for Goldman Sachs or something, yeah, you might want a 4.0 grade point average. If you're going to go into the art world, 4.0 grade, it's not going to mean anything. In fact, they're going to go, you never got out of the house.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick note to that, which is because the thing with the U of C is that there aren't a lot of classes that are project-based. They're all like problem sets and tests. And the problem with that is that at the end of it, you don't really have anything to show, to put in a portfolio. But if you're involved in extracurriculars, you can be making stuff that you can document and be able to show people.
And those hands-on classes, the few that they do offer, like you're not going to an art school. And like once I graduated, I was able to tell like the Columbia College kids that I see, you don't walk out with any technical skills, which is at first like a hindrance because you can't really get a job. You don't know how to do anything. And so, and those kids know how to do a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's the ideas. And so that's what's cool about the U of C. And even those art classes, you don't have to be any good, and like the teachers will tell you, they're like, oh, I teach at this art school and the art institute, and the ideas that are coming in these classes are a lot better, and like they'll give you a pass on the technical things because it's all about the ideas. So I would take some of those classes.
I wanted to ask about I feel like there's always a gap between like the general public and then people who are actually interested in art. So I was wondering, how do you close that gap? I mean, if you're gonna sell your art, you have to sell it to the general public, like once at least. So, I see a point of view difference in like the artists that I like as a person who studied like music history and art history before. But then when I talk to somebody about like maybe Picasso's work, and nobody understands it, and then they're just like, I don't like Picasso. Like, how do you close that gap between you and the clients who buy your work?
Everybody get that? All right. Shoot, anyone who wants at it?
I can start because I have my sense is that you don't close the gap, and in fact, I think that one of the things that we're seeing happening, or that you can believe is happening, even maybe if it's something different, is that simply because of access enabled by things like the internet, you find specialization is much more the thing, where it's not so much that there's a general public that's going to consume your art. Rather, it's making a connection with the group of people that actually can get something out of it. Now, speaking as a poet, very few people read poetry. A best-selling book of poetry sells 1,000 copies. That's 50 books in each state in the union. Think about that. Like, if each of you were to buy a book of my poetry, it would become a bestseller. Is what I'm trying to say.
50 Shades of Grey just sold 1,000 copies while you were talking.
Yeah, exactly.
In case you were wondering.
Yeah, which I was wondering. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. But does that mean it's hopeless? Not at all. I mean, I certainly don't command a great audience, but I have an unusually dedicated one. It's small, but the people who read my work, they read it with intelligence and curiosity. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And a lot of that is enabled by, the context in which my work appears, but it's also enabled by the fact that people find it. And when they find it, I hear from them, which is another thing that, is enabled by things like the internet. I mean, they just as Willie was saying, they can find me. I have a website, so they find my email address, and I get these really terrifically gratifying notes from people. So I would say that, to me, that's less of a thing. However, if you want to make money, like the however many shades of gray, then that's a different story. There's a way to do that I obviously am completely ill-equipped to describe.
This is for Claire.
Hold that thing up to your mouth.
I don't know
it's on.
Okay.
Just get close. It's called
Okay.
close miking, people. Get that thing a half an inch from your mouth. All right.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your arts administration degree and some of the frustrations you found with that.
Yeah. Well, I was a little bit of the case that Sarah was describing of going straight into grad school after school, and I don't know how well thought out that was. But specifically, I mentioned I was really excited to go into arts administration because I loved this idea of being in a position to support artists and help them make a living doing what they do. My program was really focused on non-for-profit organizations. I don't know how much I have to say about it other than I don't think that they really work anymore in this country. They used to be largely supported by corporate sponsors. Corporations don't have as much money anymore to throw at art exhibitions and theaters and things like that. I think it's just not a sustainable structure. I think we live in a time and a place where you have to think entrepreneurially to make money. And I think, to get back to what you were talking about with making money and the internet, there's this concept, and I don't know if you guys learned about it, called the long tail. And it's this amazing thing on the internet where you can access a global audience and you can, have this really niche idea, but there are enough people out there spread across the globe who will like it, and that's a way to make money doing it. You don't have to, have everybody in New York love your idea. They can be all over the place.
Is that TALEIL?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
But with grad school, I think, it had to do more with frustrations of feeling like the field of arts administration was really stuck in the non-for-profit structure, and that was something that I didn't see as working out. And then there's, of course, galleries, and that serves a very slim portion of the population of both artists and consumers, and so I found that to be frustrating too.
Hi. So I have a general question because I see that some of you are talking about do what you're good at, and I also have heard do what you want to do, and sometimes they can be different. And I was wondering what you guys chose, if you did what you want to do or did what you're good at, and what you think is best in terms of becoming a recognized artist, putting out work that you truly believe in and that you're committed to.
I don't really think you can be that good at something you don't want to do, I think is the answer to that. I don't think they can really be two different things in the long run.
I agree. And also going back to what Ethan was saying, you're going to naturally get some attention for something. So you'll probably like it too, so start there. And then when you get sick of it and you're going to start learning about something else that you like that's a bit more challenging. And that's what's cool about an industry like this. There's it's a gigged world, and you can change and you could challenge yourself in that way. But yeah, I went from improv to stand-up to comedy to now I'm doing a bit more dramatic and poetic, something more personal, and I don't like doing the same thing too often, so I do like switching it up, and I see what I like and what I don't know what I will like. I think I will like filmmaking, but we'll see. So I think it's testing everything out.
I grew up with a father who was an actor and a struggling actor for the first 15 years. He did it, and a successful actor for the last 25 years, which is great. But he always gave me that speech of, if you can think of anything to do where you'll be slightly happy outside of the entertainment industry or the arts, go do that thing, because you really have to. And it's trial by fire, and you'll figure out whether you love it enough to stick with it. If you're struggling horribly and you're not loving it for what it is, maybe there's something else you should be doing.
I would also say that when I became interested in, I always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know what kind. And it wasn't until I was in college that I discovered poetry. So that can happen later than you think, and that I feel called to that in the sense of a vocation. But I was fortunate to learn that I really loved teaching, and I feel that I'm good at it. There's a few of my students in this room they might dispute or verify that claim, but so you actually can find things that. I think it's a really good question. Like you can have both things. I was interested in teaching, but I didn't know that I was drawn to it in a similar way. But I find them both fulfilling. They involve different energies, and that becomes the real challenge. Is if there's something you're good at and something that you want to do, and they're not the same thing, you have to figure out how to portion out your energies.
One of the things I hate about these panels is they segregate us all. You know, we're in the arts ghetto, there's the science ghetto, and I'd like to see some time where we all got mixed up, because actually psychology has a lot to point out on this issue. I see I'm going here, then there, then you. And psychology, there are numerous studies that show that people are good at what they get recognition for. So pay attention to what you're getting recognition, positive feedback for from other people, especially people that don't know you, people that aren't your mom.
I guess a follow-up question of sorts to this is, how do you balance an interest in something that's not arts and arts? Like, I have interested, if you're interested in business, a law, policy, like I went to policy, but also write children's books. So like, how do you, but everyone's about art, all your passion goes into that. So how do you balance
Why don't
those
you
two
write
interests?
children's books about policy?
Yep, it'll always overlap, always.
Always?
Especially in arts, there's so many, everything is interdisciplinary in the arts. Like, I'm discovering my own interests in film and TV right now, and there's literally, I can think of 500 different things I could do with that are related to music, And obviously that's an arts example, but I think if you're interested in it, you'll find ways that it overlaps.
How important or useful do you think grad school is with respect to being like a working artist? Not necessarily with it informing or like guiding your work, but sort of as a point of recognition. Like, I feel like I've just heard of like non-MFA writers and MFA writers. Like, is that, I don't know, just thoughts on that.
Anybody want to tackle that?
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with, I think of it this way. There are kind of two modes for writing. I'm just going to use writing. This could be applied to the other arts, but I'll speak of that because I'm familiar with it. And one of them is for lack of a better word, professional. And the terms of that mode tend to be political and economic, and there's a focus on affiliation. Where did you go to school? It's got a kind of a quality of ambition and survival. Those are the sorts of things that market. Ambition comes from comes from a Latin root for the word that the Roman senators would use for walking around and shaking people's hands. That they were ambling around so that they could meet more people and obviously curry more favor as far as votes go. Now that's kind of makes it seem a little bit cynical, but it's a reality. Like, if you want to write, you got to survive in a way, and you got to know people, and you got to have the right affiliations, and you have to have a kind of awareness of these sort of political and economic realities. But the other side of it, the other mode, and these modes are not they don't oppose each other. They're complementary, and you experience them both in some ways equally, sometimes one more than the other. But the other mode is one that I think of as being sort of religious and erotic, not neurotic, erotic. So it's when you feel called, and there's a sense of service, and the terms of it are the terms are terms of this is something I love, and this is the thing that I want to do. There's a great 20th century poet in English named Basil Bunting, when asked by an interviewer late in his life what he had hoped people would say about him and his career in the arts, a career as a poet, and he was at the time fairly obscure, and he said, I hope they'll look on what I've done and seen that I've maintained the art. Like, that was his goal, was to go into it and effectively to serve it. And so, there's part of you that's going to be drawn to that, and that's the part that's going to need material. It's going to need experience, and it's going to need material. And in that sense, graduate study can be useful, but probably not MFA graduate school. In that case, I would say if you could get a physics degree, like if you have aptitude, do that, because you're going to write some really great stuff from that. Or, I went to divinity school. That was the thing. I wanted to be a poet. It was the only thing I was interested in, but I knew that I needed some sort of focus and material as far as that goes. But that doesn't discount or denigrate the professional reality of it. And in that case, it can be a very good move to get an MFA, simply because you're going to make a lot of connections. It's going to be the affiliation, the institutional affiliation, and that can really serve you well. So it's kind of a matter of, where your heart lies at the moment when you're making the choice, and then really what larger interest you feel you want to serve. I think I found that to be a useful paradigm to keep in mind.
Hi, my name's Andrea Bischoff. I'm a fourth year. I'm just wondering, I worked in finance this summer, and a lot of the companies that I saw that were successful, their business models all included, and especially in retail, Clary, I'm sure you can attest to this, their business models all included really good ideas for their web platform and for the internet. And I'm sure this is important in music or in filmmaking or art. What role the web plays in your business, and then also, do you have a decided advantage if you already are kind of technologically savvy? And are you already a step behind if you're not?
I feel like I'm biased saying this, but I wish I had taken some sort of computer classes in undergrad. I don't care what field you go into, like even if you become a banker, it's so valuable to have those skills.
Yeah.
The obvious answer to your larger question is, I'm in love with the internet. It's amazing. You can access a global audience, and you can promote yourself, and you don't need to wait for somebody else to endorse you. You can build your own credibility online, and then endorse yourself, and it's amazing.
Well, we're definitely seeing that with publishing, at least, being able to market yourself as an author, and it's funny because there was this huge fear from publishers that they were going to be replaced by ebooks and people being able to distribute, but still the mark of success for an author is getting that publishing deal after your book sells 500,000 copies from that you self-distributed. So there's still that structure in there, and I don't think it's going away anytime super soon. But it's so nice because it gives the opportunity for people to prove themselves by just putting work out there and getting people to react to it.
Yeah, I call it a Marxist wet dream.
Yeah.
But in terms of your technical now, and it's getting the culture's getting increasingly more geeky. So yeah, if you can go that way, that's fine. But it's not always necessary. Fortunately, I am non-geeky, but fortunately they make this thing called Web 2.0, and even morons like me can use it. Yes.
Okay, this question's for Claire as well. So I know of a kind's an internet company, so I was wondering how you kind of keep up with the evolving landscape of the internet and specifically.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you over the applause. I noticed you guys aren't applauding us at the end of every
Yeah, how do you kind of keep up with the evolving landscape of the internet, and specifically how do you kind of figure out what your next move in terms of generating revenue for your business?
So in terms of keeping up with the internet and the constantly evolving platforms, I think that's tough. And I try to read sort of the industry publications for the trade publications for lots of different industries to see what's happening. So I read the tech blogs and stuff like that, and I read business stuff because I think it's important to keep up on all different industries and think about how it affects yours. I try to use a lot of the stuff. I was just saying yesterday I need to sign up for Snapchat. Like these things that I think they start to be popular with high schoolers or whoever become really important. We were the first e-commerce business to launch on Tumblr, and that was a huge thing for us. And it was because I personally love Tumblr. I think it's really important to keep on top of those things. You can only know about those things if you're using them yourself. So again, that's why I say like start using Twitter, start using Instagram. You can't get hired as a social media manager at somewhere unless you're actually using these things yourself. I read an amazing article the other day that was someone had interviewed their sister who was in 10th grade and asked her what high schoolers thought of all the different new social media apps, and got an amazing insight into like what was working and what wasn't. So I thought that was one way to do it. In terms of my business, and you asked about revenue, is specifically what we're doing, or do you mean sort of like how I think about it?
I mean, just like how you kind of figure out how you want your company to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, so we started with a really specific mission, which was to be a support platform for emerging designers. And so that's how we think about it. And the next sort of phase of our business is allowing the designers that we work with to sell their entire collections through us, and providing an e-commerce platform for them. And that came, first and foremost from the sort of core mission that we had when we started the business, which was to help help designers build their businesses. But it also came from looking around at how the industry was evolving and seeing that anybody now can start a business themselves online. You can just open a Shopify, a Big Cartel, whatever, an Etsy. And that to be a relevant retailer, you had to be providing a service that would make designers, artists, whoever want to sell with you rather than just selling themselves. So that's how we think about it.
We're getting down, this is going really quick, and we're getting down to the end. So I see your hand. What I'm going to do is get in your hand. I'm going to try and make this quick. I'll get you, then you. And then I'm going to just throw it to the panel one more time. We'll go down the row, and if there's anything you think that was unsaid or unasked and you think that should have been asked, you can go for that, or should be said, you can do that. And then they'll sometimes stick around for a few minutes, and people can come up and maybe get their card or talk to them or shake their hand and tell them how much you love them. We need that as artists.
Willie, my question's actually for you. You said that you designed an ad, a feminine hygiene product ad that had blood in it for the first time, right? So I'm sure there are a lot of people that disagreed with that. What do you do when you have a client and you have a vision that isn't harmonious with theirs and you know yours is better?
I should preface by saying that ad actually is what got me kicked out of Leo Burnett. I was an intern in an administrative position, and I wanted to go into the creative department. And they told me, well, if you want to become a creative, you need a portfolio. And I was like, what's that? They're like, okay, but basically you got to have a portfolio of spec ads, fake ads, and there's this thing called portfolio school I never heard of before. It's like $30,000 a year for 2 years, and you basically make an ad campaign every week, and by the end of it, you have 10 good ones you send out to ad agencies to try to get an internship. And the whole the creative side of the entire industry is structured on this. Like, ad agencies send their recruiters to these schools. The awards they have like ad awards for these students. And so I was like, I wasn't going to do that. I just went home every night and I would spend all night making fake ads, show them to every creative director I could find my hands on. And over time, someone told me, okay, don't make ads for Nike, don't make ads for beer, because those are easy products to sell. Those have sell themselves. Try feminine hygiene. That's full of taboos. So what I did was I was like, okay, you got it, man. So I took a bunch of my girlfriends out, and I was like, I'm going to buy you coffee. Tell me everything about feminine hygiene, how you feel, what you use, why you use it. Learned a lot about this stuff. There's what's the little cup thing? Anyway, but so Always was a client at Burnett, and I made this ad and I showed it to the Always creative director, and she didn't really like it, and she's like, I don't really get the idea. I'll show you the ad. It's where is it? Because it's so it's the shape. Just a second. But, anyway, so this is it. It's the shape of the pad is a maze, and a red dot in the middle. And so she didn't really like it. I didn't think too much about it. But then what happened was someone showed that ad to the chief creative officer of Burnett Worldwide, and he loved it. And I had been an intern at this point for 7 months because they kept extending my internship. They wouldn't give me a full-time offer. And I thought, oh, man, I'm going to finally become a creative director now, an art director. I got my career started. What I didn't realize, I was 22 at the time, was that because he liked it and everyone below him didn't, and I was an intern, I had managed to piss off everyone in the company above me and below him, which is everyone else. And so basically after 7 months, they're like, we don't have anything for you. You're not good enough to work here. 2 days after I left, they sold that ad to the client, and it won a bunch of awards. And that creative director that said she didn't like it, she ended up getting a big bonus. So,
oh my God.
So I was still credited. So it's like I left as an intern and then became this award-winning art director. But yeah, but they've got like $1 billion. They've got an entire legal department. But so I don't remember what your question was.
That's all right. It was
But
a great story. Specificity, we love it. You're next. We're plowing through here.
I just wanted to hear some more stories, like maybe when you had a time where you really felt like your career in the arts was like at like a stalemate, and then you like felt like you needed to like go to do bartending or like go to a creative agency or like something like that. Like that you needed to like supplement your art life with in order for you to like earn money, or just because you really felt like you needed a change of perspective or something like that?
Mushrooms. I was when I was 24. This was 2 years after I finished college. I was working for this. Correspondence high school, which was the dreariest imaginable job, in that I was just grading tests all day. It's like the worst part of it. And it was horrible. But at that time, I decided that I didn't know what to do next with my life, and so I decided to. Well, there was this poet whose work I was really interested in. His name is Ronald Johnson, and I found his address. This was pre-internet time. I found his address in this book that listed writers' addresses, and I wrote him a letter out of the blue asking him to give me some advice about sort of what to do next with my life, and it was the best thing I've done. That was the best move, the smartest thing that I ever done as a writer, because it happened at the time he had just finished up a 25-year-long project, and he was just very receptive to those kinds of questions, and he immediately took me under his wing. He became my mentor. I developed a really profound friendship with him, and he died in 1998. And before he died, he asked me to be his literary executor. So I'm presently, I'm sort of carrying his work on, essentially, in control of all of his papers. I've been able to devote myself to trying to keep his name alive and publishing his works. And this gets back to the earlier question about about the sense of vocation. So things, if you have maybe it's less that when you come to either a crossroads or a stalemate that you fret and worry about it. There's probably an instinct that you have, and those instincts, or that instinct, can often be. It can be the thing. Like, you'll look back on your life and you'll say, that was when I made the right move, or that's when I did something that has made all the difference.
I just want to quickly add that there is nothing wrong with having an additional job to your art. I mean, there's nothing
A lot of
wrong.
people do it for their whole life.
We like food, so.
All right. So, since you have to make money to live and stuff, so sometimes I feel like you have to cater to like the public that's gonna spend money, but then I feel like as an artist who is making stuff straight from their being, they just have to do what they want to do. So, are there times when you have to cater, or do you always just go for what you think is the best, no matter what?
The sellout question.
So I'm not really that much of an artist, I guess, in my main job, which is for Pitchfork, but I will say that Pitchfork is an internet company that has made its name on writing about emerging artists that people are not aware of in the mainstream. And there's a lot to be said for the fact that people will come looking for your individual perspective that you put out there, instead of looking for you catering to the mainstream, because there are a million people doing that.
I also just think it's really important to think about yourself as a business, and I think you can do both and make money on one and make yourself happy on the other. I think, take fashion as an example, because that's what I know, but if you look at a runway show that a designer puts down the runway, they're not selling most of those clothes. That's branding. That's doing what they love, things that they think are really beautiful. And then when you go into the department stores and buy their things, they're watered down, or they're just made more accessible for the consumer. And so I think you can do both.
We got one final question here, then the cleanup, and then it's on to the rest of the day.
Looking back on your careers, what one piece of I don't know.
in the midst of your careers, I guess. But what's the one piece of advice you'd give yourself at the beginning, or alternatively, what's the biggest mistake you think you've made in your career?
Good way to ask the last question. I should have moved to New York sooner. I'm still not like really upset that I stayed in Chicago for 2 years. I think I learned a lot that way, but I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to advance in the field that I wanted. I was stuck somewhere. So give yourself that opportunity, I guess. That's really vague, but give yourself that opportunity.
You know, I'll add to this because I am the old guy here, and that is, and I was telling people this earlier, so I hadn't thought about it before, but I always thought my career trajectory would be like shaped like that. You know, I get out of school and it would go up and just keep going up, and after doing this for 40 years plus, I find that it's more like that, and people who have been in this business for a long time find that it's more like that. Even those people who may have a name recognition, they sometimes spend time where things go a little bit slow, and you just have to.
When you're commission based, they're much higher grade.
It's like
it's like
a jag
this.
guitar.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna fly through. This is the lightning round, where you just like anything that you think was missed or should have been asked, and we'll start with you, go to the end, and then we'll applaud our guests and move on.
I mean, I would just say, like, I think I stressed out a lot when I was first starting out, just about not, like trying to find where things are going, and you know, I think the creative field is one where your ego, like you find yourself comparing yourself to others a lot, and there's always someone younger, there's always someone who's doing better work. But I think if you really focus more on the work itself and what you're trying to say, then all that stuff like fades away. You know, it doesn't matter like whether this person is getting more gallery shows, because maybe at the end of the day, that's not like, you're not an artist in order to show at a gallery, right? Like there's something you're trying to say. So if you focus on that, I think a lot of the distracting stuff that can really bring you down, they don't affect you as much.
I agree with that. You're definitely, if you have a passion for it, it has to be pretty clear, and when it gets muddy, always go back to it. Another thing I would say is if everyone's going one way, go the other way. It's less crowded, and just, always do things that are different. You each have a very, very unique sense of style and a perspective. Respect that, because you don't, and it's painful, but respect that and be different.
I gave a book recommendation to the people who I had lunch with, and I'm going to repeat here. You should all read The Gift by Lewis Hyde. Its subtitle, originally it's been altered, was The Erotic Property of the Imagination. And then another recommendation, if you're curious, you can find this through Google. If you look for an essay which is called On Being Neglected, and it was written by Thomas Meyer. He's one of the greatest living poets in English. I'm sure this is the first time any of you has heard his name, and he wrote that essay, and you'll understand sort of where it goes. A life in the arts involves committing yourself to the life and being less driven by the desire for people to recognize your name. I think that both of those works are useful in that regard.
I think I'll just echo what I think I've been saying, which is just shape your own Google results. You know, start your own blog, do the stuff you want to do, and make sure that people can find it easily, because you don't need to wait for somebody else to offer you the opportunity to do it.
And I'll just say, we talk a lot about interning and that you should all go intern, and it's true that you should all go intern. But if you can at all choose what kind of internship you're going into, I think that there are two kinds that at least the entertainment industry has right now. One is where you're essentially doing busy work and putting it on your resume. And it's impressive that you worked for this gigantic company or well-known company because you interned there. but you're not actually exposed to the process or how they do their business. You know, they keep you away from that. And then there are internships where you'll actually learn, which I think is supposed to be the point of an internship, like legally, is to learn how to do the business. And they do still exist, but if you can make that determination when you're interviewing for an internship, even if it's a much less sexy company, but you're going to be exposed to how the business actually works, take that one. Take the less sexy one, because you'll find out whether or not you love it and whether or not you're good at it.
I would say be present, go out, do things. If you're interested in music, go to shows every night. If you can afford it, play shows as much as you can. Talk to people, cold email people, do things entrepreneurially on your own that makes you make connections with local people. In turn, just don't stop.
I think theater in particular sometimes self-criticizes for having an audience of itself, that the only people who are coming to see our shows are the other actors doing other shows. And I think what keeps us from the reality of that is collaboration. And I think, and also that sort of technology savviness is, you know, I think what makes us irrelevant is just our commitment to the conventions we have. And I think the way we shake out of that is for everybody at this table to collaborate, you know, and to look for the other people in other departments and get them to get involved in your work, because you'll learn so much from them and they have so much more to contribute to you than you'll ever realize. And then on that note, also just always get your work out there, you know, because I think the worst thing we do is sit on our ideas. And as soon as you've got something, just invite people to see it or hear it or do it or whatever, and they will come. And if you fail, you'll learn all the more, you know.
This was a raving success. Let's hear it for our extraordinary panel. Yeah, great.